I thought I was being thoughtful. A little too thoughtful, maybe, considering the way things were going with Jenny. But it seemed like a good idea at the time. A gift for her birthday, a smart mirror with a built-in security camera. She'd been really into yoga lately, spending hours in front of the mirror in the living room, perfecting her poses and recording videos for her classes. She often complained about the poor lighting and how the mirror didn't show her full form. So, I got her something I thought would help, something sleek and modern, a high-tech mirror that had voice commands, adjustable settings, and even a built-in camera for a better experience. I told her it was for her yoga, a way to improve her practice. She smiled, hugging me tightly. "It's perfect," she said, genuinely happy. She was pleased, and I felt like a good husband for giving her something she'd use and appreciate. But deep down, there was more to it than just being a thoughtful gift. Lately, Jenny had been acting strangely. She'd been disappearing on weekends, going to meditate at some hotel on the outskirts of the city. At first, I didn't question it. People need their space, right? She'd say it was to recharge, to get some peace away from everything. But the frequency of these trips started to worry me. It became a regular thing, and every time, she came back the same, distant, almost like she wasn't really there with me anymore. She didn't talk much about her time away, just that it helped her clear her head. But there was something about it that didn't sit right. I know how these things go. If you're paying attention, you start to see patterns. And the patterns I saw in Jenny's behavior weren't adding up. The weekend trips became more frequent, and she'd always seem a little too detached when she returned. I found myself questioning her more than I should have. Maybe I was just paranoid, but something was off. So, I did what I thought was the next best thing. I used the mirror. I knew she wouldn't mind. I told her it was for her yoga practice, that the camera would help her see herself from different angles, perfect her form. But in truth, it was more for me. I needed to know what was going on. I connected the camera to my phone, a hidden access point that I could check anytime. At first, the footage was harmless. She'd stand in front of the mirror, stretching, adjusting her pose, sometimes giving the camera a wave or a smile. It was all so normal, so everyday. I told myself there was no reason to worry, that I was just being paranoid. But the more I watched, the more I saw it, the small shifts in her demeanor, the way her eyes would look off to the side, like she was waiting for something or someone. There was a distance in her gaze, a detachment that didn't match the woman I had married. The more I watched, the more questions I had. What was she doing when she was away? Who was she really spending time with? And that's when I started watching the footage more closely, scrolling through the recordings. It was on a regular night, late, 23:17 to be exact, that I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. The footage showed Jenny standing in front of the mirror, dressed in white pajamas, her hair loose around her shoulders. She was talking to someone, but not to the camera. She was speaking softly, almost like she was trying to keep her voice low, but her words were clear enough to make my stomach drop. "I'm alone again. He doesn't suspect anything. You can come here." I froze. She wasn't looking at the camera, but her voice was unmistakable. And the thing that unsettled me the most? She was standing in front of a completely empty mirror. No one else was in the room. But then, I saw it. A shadow. It shifted just behind her, like someone was standing there, though according to the camera's angle, there was no one. No one except Jenny. The figure, if that's what it was hard to make out, but it moved, a dark, indistinct shape, like it didn't belong. I watched, frozen, as Jenny didn't react to it at all. She was completely unaware of the shadow that loomed behind her, just talking as if nothing was wrong. Her words rang in my ears. "You can come here." Who was she talking to? And why was this happening? My heart pounded as I rewound the video, watching it again and again, trying to make sense of it. But it was clear as day, she wasn't alone. I didn't know who or what was with her, but something was off, and it was something I wasn't ready to confront. The woman I thought I knew wasn't who she seemed to be. Something had changed, and I needed to find out what that was. So, I made a decision. I had to know more. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about the footage. Jenny's words echoed in my mind. "I'm alone again. He doesn't suspect anything. You can come here." It was like a weight was pressing down on my chest, a feeling I couldn't shake. What had I just witnessed? Who was she talking to? And why was she standing in front of that empty mirror, so unaware of the shadow that moved behind her? The more I thought about it, the more questions piled up, and I knew I had to get answers. There was no way I could just ignore it anymore. I had to go to that hotel, the one on the outskirts of the city, the one Jenny had been visiting regularly. I didn't know what I was hoping to find, but I knew that I needed to get there. I had to see it for myself, to check the place out. Maybe there was some detail I could pick up on, something that would make sense of this strange situation. I didn't tell Jenny. I couldn't. I had to do this without her knowing. So, I got in my car early the next morning and made the drive. The hotel wasn't hard to find, but there was something unsettling about the area. It was an older building, tucked away behind a row of trees, its peeling paint and faded sign making it look like it belonged in a different era. The place felt off, like a relic from a past that had been forgotten. Still, I pushed those feelings down. I had a mission to complete, and no matter how strange it seemed, I was determined to get to the bottom of it. The receptionist didn't look up when I walked in. She was typing something on a keyboard, her fingers moving quickly, and I wondered if anyone ever really stayed here. It didn't look like a place that got much foot traffic. When I approached the desk, she glanced at me with a tired expression. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice low, almost as if she was trying to avoid conversation. I cleared my throat. "I'm looking for room 308, I said. "I believe my wife stayed there recently." "Jenny." I trailed off, hoping the name might ring a bell. The receptionist paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She looked up at me, her eyes narrowing slightly, before she spoke again. "I'm afraid that room has been closed for a long time," she said, her tone flat, like it was a piece of information she'd delivered 100 times before. "Room 308's been off limits for a year. It was closed for renovations after a incident." The words hung in the air for a moment, and I felt a cold rush of discomfort shoot through me. "Incident?" I asked, my voice faltering. "Yes," she replied, her voice dropping even lower. "A woman was found in that room, not long after checking in. It was, well, let's just say it was a bad situation. She died there." She paused, waiting for my reaction. "They say it was a suicide. But, after that, the room was sealed. No one stayed in it since." I stood there, frozen for a second, my mind spinning. Suicide? The feeling of unease settled deeper in my stomach. Jenny had stayed there, and I was now standing in the lobby of a hotel that had a history of something dark, something that didn't sit right. The receptionist continued, unaware of the impact of her words. "I do have the old footage from her last check-in, though," she added casually, as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. "The cameras were still running when they found her." That was it. Something snapped inside of me. I had to see it. I needed to know. I asked her to show me the footage, even though I had no idea what I was about to watch. She led me to a small back room where an old, grainy monitor sat on a desk, surrounded by stacks of paperwork and dusty shelves. The room smelled faintly of mildew and stale air, like it hadn't been used in a long time. She sat me down and plugged in a small drive, pressing a few buttons until the screen flickered to life. The footage appeared on the screen, the timestamp clearly visible at the bottom, 12:03 a.m., the night of the incident. At first, I didn't recognize much. It was all standard hotel footage, a figure entering the lobby, checking in, walking down a hallway. But then, the figure entered room 308. And that's when it hit me. It was Jenny. She walked into the room alone, but she wasn't alone when she left. The footage was too blurry to make out any real detail, but I could clearly see her interacting with someone I didn't recognize. He stood beside her, walking with her toward the bed, his face obscured in the video. And then they both disappeared from view. It wasn't until later that I realized that the man beside her, the one she was with, looked too familiar. He had a presence, a stillness to him that I couldn't shake, and as the footage played on, something in me clicked. I knew this man. I stared at the screen, my heart racing, trying to put the pieces together. But the more I looked, the less I understood. Who was this man? And why did I feel like I should know him? But there was no mistake. Jenny had been with him. And as I sat there, staring at the blurry figure on the screen, the answer was clear. He was the man from the mirror. I couldn't shake the image of that man beside Jenny. I replayed the footage over and over, trying to make sense of the blurry figure. But the more I watched, the more confused I became. It was like trying to solve a puzzle with pieces that didn't fit. I was sure I knew him, but at the same time, I couldn't remember where from. My mind raced with questions, but there were no answers. What was going on? Why was she with him? What had I missed? I couldn't just ignore it. I needed more. I had to know everything. That night, I went back home and stood in front of the mirror. The smart mirror. Jenny had been using it for weeks, but now it felt like something far more sinister. I hadn't checked it in a while, too distracted by the hotel footage, but tonight, I couldn't avoid it. I needed to see what else the mirror had been recording. I opened the app on my phone, watching the live feed from the camera. Everything seemed normal at first, just the empty room with the soft glow of the lamp in the corner. Then, I saw Jenny, sitting on the bed in her usual pajamas, her legs folded beneath her, eyes closed in what looked like deep concentration. The mirror reflected her perfectly, capturing every inch of her form. But as I watched, something didn't sit right. There was an odd stillness in her movements, a way she seemed almost too serene, too composed. As I looked closer, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Her reflection wasn't moving exactly the same way as her body. It was subtle at first, but when I focused, it became clear. Her reflection was lagging behind her. It wasn't just a trick of the light or the angle of the camera. No, this was different. Something about it felt wrong. I watched as she shifted, and in the reflection, her face contorted in a way that didn't match her calm demeanor. Her lips pulled into a faint, twisted smile, but it was wrong, so wrong. It was a smile that wasn't hers. It was as if the reflection had a life of its own. I froze. I couldn't look away. My finger hovered over the phone screen, unsure if I wanted to stop the recording or keep watching. But before I could do anything, Jenny's voice broke through the silence, soft but clear. "You're just like him. So calm. Only you really see me. Not like Travis. He doesn't hear me. You're in every mirror." Her voice was eerily distant, detached, like she was speaking to someone else, someone not present in the room. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Who was she talking to? There was no one else in the room. But I knew that wasn't the point. The words themselves were disturbing, especially the way she spoke about me. Travis doesn't hear me. Travis doesn't see me. She wasn't speaking to me. She wasn't speaking to the reflection in the mirror either. There was something else that had her attention. I listened intently as she continued, her voice shifting in tone, now almost pleading. "Don't tell him that. If he finds out, you will disappear too." Her words were like a knife to my chest. She was hiding something far more sinister than I'd realized. And that something was connected to this shadowy figure from the hotel, to the man in the reflection. I felt a wave of nausea hit me, and I had to steady myself against the wall to keep from falling. My world had just tilted off its axis, and I was struggling to keep my balance. In that moment, I realized that I wasn't just dealing with a woman who had been lying to me. I was dealing with something darker, something I couldn't comprehend. And the more I looked, the more I understood. The woman I thought was Jenny, the one I married, the one I built a life with, wasn't the same woman standing in front of me now. She had changed, and I wasn't sure if I could trust anything anymore. I couldn't stand it any longer. I knew I had to confront her. I had to know what was going on, even if it meant confronting the truth, no matter how painful or strange it might be. But deep down, I feared that what I was about to uncover might break everything I thought I knew about my life, about my marriage, about my reality. But the alternative was worse. Living in the shadow of this uncertainty, wondering what the hell was happening to the woman I loved, and more importantly, to me. So, I made a decision. I would go to her. I would find out everything, no matter the cost. But as I turned to leave the room, one thought burned in my mind. What if I didn't like what I found? The next few days were a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had heard in the recordings, the way Jenny had spoken to someone in the mirror, the way her words sent chills down my spine. It was as if I was trapped in a nightmare, and I couldn't wake up. Every time I looked at her, I felt a distance between us, like I was staring at a stranger. I had to keep digging. I couldn't let it go. The mirror was my only lead, and if there was more hidden inside it, I had to find out what it was. So, I kept watching. I watched every recording, every frame, every second. But after a while, I started to realize that the videos didn't tell me everything. I needed something more, something beyond just what the camera could show. That's when I remembered the microphone. The mirror had a built-in microphone, too. I'd never thought to check it before, but now I needed to hear her voice, to understand what she was saying when she thought I wasn't around. I hadn't used the microphone because I thought it was just for the camera, something for her yoga practice. But now, it felt like the key to everything. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what I might hear, but I didn't care. I had to know the truth. That night, after Jenny had gone to bed, I sat in the living room, my phone in hand. I pulled up the app for the mirror and tapped the icon for the microphone. The first few seconds were quiet. Just the sound of the house settling, the faint hum of the air conditioning in the background. I told myself to calm down. I'd only be listening for a few minutes, just to see what she might say when she thought no one was listening. But then I heard it. Her voice. Soft at first, almost like she was speaking to herself, but the words were clear. I can't stand it anymore. Travis doesn't understand. He never understands. I've tried to tell him, but he doesn't hear me. He never really listens. There was a pause, and I could almost feel the weight of her words hanging in the air. My heart started to beat faster. This wasn't just about yoga or her trips to the hotel. This was something deeper, something darker. You're just like him, she continued, her voice trembling. So calm, only you really see me. Not like Travis. He doesn't hear me. He doesn't see me. Not like you do. The way she said it sent a wave of dread through me. It was like she wasn't talking to me at all. She was speaking to someone else, someone I couldn't see, someone who was always there, always watching, just like she said. She sounded so distant, like she was losing herself in this conversation with whoever or whatever was on the other side. I could feel the walls closing in around me, the realization that I was no longer just a bystander in her life. I was the one who had been left behind, left out of the loop. You're in every mirror, she said, her voice becoming more desperate. I feel you everywhere. I can't escape it. But I have to keep pretending. I have to pretend for him, for Travis. If he ever finds out, I don't know what will happen. But you will disappear, too. The last words sent a cold shiver down my spine. She wasn't just talking to someone. She was talking to something that had control over her, over both of us. I felt the weight of her words pressing on my chest, each syllable a reminder that everything I thought I knew about Jenny, about us, was a lie. She wasn't just hiding something from me. She was hiding everything. The mirror wasn't just a piece of technology, it was a portal. It had become a gateway, a connection to something far darker than I could have ever imagined. And that something had a hold on her. It was as if she was being pulled into its grip, losing herself in it more and more each day. The woman I loved was slipping away, and I couldn't stop it. My mind raced. What did she mean by, you will disappear too? Who was she talking to? And why did it feel like I was the one who was being erased from her life? I replayed the recording, listening again to the tremor in her voice, the fear and the desperation. She wasn't just trying to hide something from me, she was trying to protect me, or maybe to protect herself from something much more dangerous. But whatever it was too late. The truth had already started to unravel, and now there was no going back. I couldn't just sit here, listening to these recordings, wondering what was happening to her. I had to confront her. I had to confront whatever was lurking in the mirrors. But as I sat there, holding the phone, the gravity of the situation hit me. I wasn't just going to find answers in some hotel room or from a camera. The truth was bigger than I could understand. Jenny had been hiding something from me, and it wasn't just her secrets, it was something much more insidious, something that had been quietly taking over our lives for longer than I could ever have imagined. But I wasn't sure if I was ready to face what I would find. Would I ever be able to look at her the same way again? Could I even trust her if I did find out the truth? The questions burned in my mind, but I knew one thing for certain, I was already in too deep. There was no turning back now. I spent the next few days in a haze of confusion and fear, trapped between what I knew and what I had yet to discover. The recordings, the strange behavior, the shadowy figure I saw behind Jenny in the mirror, it was all connected to something far darker than I ever anticipated. I knew I had to confront her. I had to find out the truth, no matter the cost. But with every passing hour, the sense of dread grew heavier. What if I wasn't ready for what I was going to uncover? What if the truth was something I couldn't handle? But I couldn't live in this uncertainty anymore. I needed to know. I had to go to that room again, the same hotel, the same place where everything started. Jenny had been there so many times, and it wasn't just a coincidence. It was as if I was being led back to that place, to that moment, to face whatever had been lurking in the shadows. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that whatever was happening wasn't just about her. It was about me too, about my own role in this twisted reality. I didn't know how or why, but I had to go. I had to see it for myself. When I arrived, the hotel was even more oppressive than before, its faded sign casting a shadow over everything around it. The air was thick, almost suffocating, as I made my way to the front desk. The receptionist was gone, replaced by a different woman this time, who looked at me with a faint sense of recognition but said nothing. I didn't need to ask her anything. I knew where I needed to go. I didn't care about the warnings, the bans. I couldn't be stopped. Not anymore. Room 308. I took the elevator up, my heart pounding as the doors closed behind me. I didn't know what I was expecting, but I was ready for anything. When I reached the floor, the hallway stretched out before me in eerie silence. The doors were all closed, their numbers barely visible, but there it was, 308. The one that had been closed for so long. The door was cracked open, just slightly, and I could feel the air around me grow colder, like I was stepping into something unnatural. The moment I stepped inside, I was hit with a strange sense of déjà vu, like I had been here before, like I had lived this moment over and over again in some twisted dream. The room was dimly lit, the same as in the footage. But this time, I wasn't looking at it through a screen. I was standing there, in the flesh, and everything felt wrong. The room was a mess, furniture overturned, the bed in disarray, like someone had left in a hurry. But it wasn't just the physical mess that unsettled me. It was the feeling in the air, the heaviness of something that had happened here long ago, something that had never truly been erased. And then I saw her. Jenny was sitting on the bed, her body positioned in the center of the room, but her reflection in the mirror was different. Her reflection was separate from her physical form, as if there were two versions of her existing at the same time. The reflection was watching me with eyes that weren't hers, eyes that were empty and cold. And then, as I stepped closer, I saw something else. The reflection turned its head, not in sync with her body, but independently, like it had a mind of its own. It spoke in a voice that wasn't hers either, distorted and deep, like a different presence was using her form to communicate. "We never stopped seeing each other, Travis," the voice said, echoing in the room. "You just couldn't stand us anymore. That's why your memory was erased." I felt the room spin, my mind trying to catch up with the words, but it was like trying to grasp at smoke. Memory erased? What was she talking about? My heart raced as flashes of forgotten moments began to surface. The dark corners of my mind, memories that didn't make sense, pieces of a puzzle I couldn't put together. And then it hit me. Jenny wasn't who she said she was. She never had been. She was part of something far bigger, a program, a surveillance experiment, something I couldn't fully understand. And the worst part? I had been part of it, too. All those years we'd spent together, I hadn't been living a normal life. I had been under surveillance, a subject of some twisted experiment, and Jenny had been playing a role in it all along. She wasn't my wife. She was a construct, a piece of the program, a woman who had been assigned to keep me in line, to keep me unaware of the truth. The realization shattered everything I thought I knew. My life, my memories, all of it was a lie. Jenny had betrayed me, but not in the way I thought. She had always been part of the game, playing her part, and I had been too blind to see it. She wasn't my partner. She was a participant in something much darker. And now, as I stood in that room, the full weight of the truth crashed down on me. I had to leave. But when I turned to go, something stopped me. There she was, standing in the doorway, but it wasn't Jenny anymore. At least, not the Jenny I knew. The real Jenny. She was standing there in the reflection, her face pale and expressionless, and for the first time, I saw the real her, not the one I had been fooled into believing was my wife. She leaned forward, her face inches from mine, and whispered, "Now it's your turn, Travis." I'm alone again. The mirror flickered, and then, just like that, the screen went black. The room was empty. The air was cold. And I was alone,